Hello, friends. Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of the Why I Love Disney podcast, the final episode of 2021. But in fact, we are recording this the last day of 2021, looking back over the past year of the best, biggest, and worst Disney news. But our listeners might be listening to this the very first few days of 2022. So we want to wish you a happy new year. I'm here with David and JD. Happy New Year, guys.
What's up, guys? What's up? Happy New Year.
Man, do y'all have any big plans? This is New Year's Eve so do you have any big plans for tonight? Any New Year's Eve traditions that you're excited about or do as a family?
Yeah, not any huge traditions. Just gonna go see some friends. About to go back to Florida here in the next couple of days. So just trying to see as many people as possible, hug as many necks, and just see some buddies tonight.
Hugging some necks. All right.
It's gonna be a quiet night for me. Still have one of my daughters is home, and so we're going to have a quiet family night. The rest of us are going to be here, and so it's going to be good.
Awesome. So we are looking forward. We don't do I'm at the age now, it's like board games and movies and trying to stay up past midnight. You know how that goes. But a couple of years, I was just remembering, listening while you were talking, David, it sounds boring for you, but was it last year or the year before that you were in the park for New Year's Eve?
2 years ago, 2019 into 2020, We were in the parks thinking, woohoo, here we go, it started 2020. Then
right,
pre-pandemic. So and then last year we had COVID.
Yeah,
so it's been a rocky. Every New Year's we don't know what's gonna be going on. So this is probably the most stable, normal New Year's we've had in a while. So
remarkable. You went from Disney in the park New Year's to having COVID for New Year's. Now you're right in the middle of just like let's hug some necks, right?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny because you'll get little memories on your phone. You know, you'll get like reminders about a year ago or 2 years ago, and I'll get it 2 years ago, and I'm like walking through Magic Kingdom like on cloud nine, and then I'll get a 1 year ago, and I'm like in bed with just like coughing my head off and just crazy sickness. So just happy to be healthy, happy to just be with family and stuff like that.
No doubt. It puts things in perspective, too. You know, we do this podcast, and we love Disney, and we talk about all sorts of things. That, man, if you're healthy and you're listening to this, man, there's a lot to be grateful for, and it's been a difficult year for a lot of people. We understand and we acknowledge that. But one of the best things you can do, the best medicines for the soul is gratitude. And going into 2022, I want to be more thankful and express gratitude in bigger and deeper ways. So I'm thankful for you guys. I'm thankful for our listeners. I'm thankful for this podcast. I'm thankful for Disney content. I'm thankful for everything, man. My family, like you said, health. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So
that sounds great.
So and actually, I wanted to bring up too. I think we did a podcast. One of our very first podcasts was talking about, David, your trip to the park over New Year's. So if you want to, very first one. So if you want to go back and listen to episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, I know we reference that a lot and find out what it's like to be in Disney at New Year's. Those were pretty. Actually, some of our most listened to episodes. Actually. So we encourage you to go check those out. Maybe if you're watching YouTube, there should probably going to be a link fly in right now that says click here to listen to that. You might bookmark that and subscribe in the future. But let's get started with this, man. There's so much Disney news. 2021 was the year where parks opened back up. We're moving forward, trying to see, is COVID behind us? It's still not behind us. This stupid thing is still dragging on. But there's lots of Disney news. So we thought we would hit the biggest and just kind of commentate on what we feel like the best and worst moments. So what do you guys got? And I know we each have our list of things we want to hit today. So I'm going to let you guys start with what do you think is your biggest moment of Disney news for 2021?
Well, I don't know that any of these feel like necessarily the biggest. I think there's one that's probably the biggest, but it's just been kind of a weird, strange, weird news year. I don't ever remember a time in the past 2 or 3 years when I've really been following the news closely and watching social media about Disney, where it seems to be there's just a negative edge a little bit more than I've seen. So I think that's one of the most interesting news items I've seen. It's just that there's way more commentary on everything Disney does, more than ever. So there's some, and it was coming out of the pandemic. There just aren't as many new attractions, or as many new. Most of this year has been just trying to get things back up and running. So, but there are a few that stood out to me when I was thinking about that. It was hard to believe that just in April of this year, Disneyland finally opened. They were shut down for like 13 months. I think it was 13 months.
Yeah.
It was like a whole year that they were down. Of course, Florida wasn't closed for as long. Florida closed in 2020, but back by the fall you could get back into the parks. But Disneyland just in April was just opening up again, which is hard to believe that's only been open like 7-8 months now.
Yeah. So it was like that's saying it's been such an interesting time for parks because we've got this global pandemic, which is brought the global economy very low. But then also in October we started celebrating the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World. So it's been a really interesting time of seeing how Disney's kind of usually like they're trying to cut costs and trying to make as much money as possible from this pandemic. But then you've got this whole fan base that's saying this is the time to blow it out of the water. Like, stop worrying about spending money. Like, we're celebrating all of the Walt Disney World parks. So that's been very interesting. And then with that came the introduction to Genie Plus, and we've talked about that for a little bit, about how people have kind of viewed that or used that. Definitely, there's a crowd who it's worth it, and there's a crowd that it's not worth it.
And for those of you, if you're not familiar, Disney for years Disney has had at the parks a system called Fast Pass, and you could skip the line on some attractions. You would get a few. You could get a few of these a day. If you were staying in the hotels, you had certain advantages that people that weren't staying in a resort that they didn't get. So there was this system called Fast Pass, and you could skip some lines. That was basically it. Well, this year they have renamed the system. It's now called Genie instead of Genie Plus instead of Fast Pass, and now it's a paid service where you're paying $15 per person at Disney World, per person in your group, to get some fast passes. You can't get a fast pass to everything, even though you pay for the service. You're still probably only going to get 2 or 3 attractions that day, unless you really know how to work the system. And then the major rides in the park, like the Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, some of those attractions, you have to pay an additional fee, which can be as much as $20 per person to skip the line. So that's kind of a new feature. So if you follow a lot of other blogs or watch a lot of things on YouTube like I do, you've probably seen this. This is a lot of people's worst of 2021 list. To be fair, I've seen a lot of people be positive about it and say, hey, you can use it, or you don't have to purchase it. You can stand in line and not pay for any of that. So.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, one of the biggest, other than like Disneyland opening, right? Yeah. The next thing is Fast Pass went away, like you said. That's a huge thing. It's been a staple of the park for so long, and they replaced it with this other system that has had mixed reviews. And you were commenting at the beginning, David, and I was sitting here thinking and didn't want to interject, but of the year has seemed negative, that people have just seen. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that is more due to just the times we're in, that people are just more negative and in general, and social media platforms and the way that business runs? It seems to be more fear, and negativity seems to drive more clicks and more revenue for bloggers and things like that. Or do you think that Disney has brought some of this on themselves, and some of it's fair? Do you think, or so what's the mix on the spectrum of those two things?
I'm not quite sure. I think it's an interesting thing to watch. It is this feeling that the corporate side. Like people aren't complaining like, oh, this hamburger was subpar, or this new attraction was bad. It's the corporate side of things that people seem to be connecting with and realizing that there's a creative division of this company and there's a corporate division of this company, and it slows down the creative sometimes and it frustrates people. But I think, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just to comment on that. I think it would be a mix of both. I think Disney has brought on a little bit of it. I mean, when you go back to, we've got this huge celebration and you're, counting pennies, it creates a different culture. And I've seen going to the parks, me and my wife have been trying to go to the parks just about every month since we got this annual passes. And it does, when we've kind of talked about it a little bit with this whole Genie Plus, with this whole pay to ride, it can be discouraging when you're just there for like a day or two and you want to enjoy riding as many rides, and every time you're seeing people, walk past you, it can kind of be discouraging and it can affect your mood and emotion.
Yeah.
And with that, I mean, we've heard, some, big corporate, Bob Chapek, Bob Iger kind of comment on it. About just kind of running your company from a statistic standpoint or not. And I've kind of explained it to people kind of with this cheeseburger analogy of, if I go to a restaurant and I order a cheeseburger, and, when you go to the restaurant and you're ordering this cheeseburger and it says, okay, you're going to get a plain cheeseburger for $15, but you can get bacon and you can add it for $3, or you can get lettuce and add it for, $1, and you can get ketchup for 50 cents. A statistic will tell you that I'm going to pay for that ketchup that one time. But a statistic won't tell you that I'm more likely to come every week if it's all included. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, there's this kind of thing that Disney's kind of understand of like, okay, there's this kind of an understanding of a customer that goes beyond a statistic, where it's like, if I go to a park and I don't have to pay for this extra feature, and it's just like, you've paid this fee, you've done enough, we're going to include this, which the resorts do a great job of that, or at least they used to. It makes you feel valued as a customer, and you're more likely to be a loyal customer.
There's a value proposition. You're right, and that's what I'm looking for too. You don't mind paying for things necessarily, but you want to feel like, oh, I got my money's worth. This was worth it. My dollar went a long way.
And you want to feel valued. I mean, the thing that I think so many longtime Disney fans and new Disney goers are just getting really bummed out about is they feel like Disney's kind of using every opportunity to take another dollar with a lot of things. I mean, again, I've been a lifelong Disney fan, and I know that's not Disney's usual kind of character as a company. Right. But through this pandemic, that's what they're kind of showing. So I think that's why Disney's kind of had a rough maybe media or social media reputation from this year alone.
Right, and I think with the Genie Plus introduction and the fact that people are having to pay for FastPass for the first time, along with that, there have been other things like the Magical Express, which was the bus service that was free from the airport to the parks. That's been taken away. Now you're going to have to pay your own way for that. There was even talk, just a few months ago, there was talk that they were going to cut the portion sizes of food to save money. So you're paying, and the prices have all gone up. So prices have gone up, but now you're having to also pay for your FastPass, and you're also having to pay for your transportation. So you're paying more, but you're getting less in a lot of people's eyes. Now, if you're a huge fan like us, you're still going to go and have a great time. You're going to figure out how to do it. But for a lot of people, I think it creates just this sense of, like you said, a negative, that you don't, when you're going into this immersive world, you don't. I was even thinking about, we've talked about immersion and what it is, but it's like you're going to be immersed in nostalgia, but you're also going to be immersed in joy. The parks are kind of this place of joy. And when you go in and start having to, you're got to pay for this, got to pay for this, it starts being a negative thing, a cloud over all that, and it kind of intrudes on why you go there, is to experience this joyful immersion experience that it's disrupted a little bit.
Yeah, and
Sure.
we love it. Yeah, so you go ahead.
No, I was going to say too. I think too. No more Magic Bands. They're not. You have to buy them yourself if you want the Magic Band.
And again, that's one thing that was designed so that you're not thinking about money. You're not counting every penny because you've got this Magic Band. It makes purchases for you, and but when you have to buy the Magic Band, now that kind of it defeats what the whole purpose of it is.
Yeah, and that was such a fun part. I mean, we took a lot of trips during that little phase of they would send a box of Magic Bands to your house, a month before your trip, and your whole family would get out their colors and put their Magic Bands on to make sure they worked. And it was this exciting time that you look forward to your trip, and you didn't have to pay for it. So again, it felt like a Christmas morning on a regular day that gets you pumped for it, and now they don't have it.
Right.
So it's just one of those tough things. It's like, and we love Disney, and it's like we're always going to keep going to Disney. We're going to support Disney. And of course, there's a crowd. I mean, we talk about Genie Plus a lot, and there's a crowd that can really utilize Genie Plus. But yeah.
Well, and that too brings me. Go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, just a year of feeling like you're paying for more but getting less. Another one that was I just saw recently was the Tram Service. It took forever for the trams to come back, and everybody, a lot of people are. If you come with senior adults or you come with small children and you park and you're actually driving in and parking, it's a long walk from the parking lots to the transportation center, and so everybody's asking for when are the trams coming. And I saw this funny clip the other day where NBC had done a story on this. It's not just on Disney, but companies in general charging more for less. And they interviewed some vloggers who talked about and used Disney trams as an example. And now the trams are back. So you wonder if they got some, they didn't like the negative publicity, but they finally got the trams going again. So, maybe we just got to speak up and be more vocal about, the things that we don't like. And, I hear a lot of people say, until it hits their corporate pocketbook, that people don't like these things. They're just going to keep doing it. And that's just part of being a fan. You're dealing with the corporate side. I've always heard that the challenge of getting to do anything you love is that most everything has a dark side, and you're going to get acquainted with it. And so that's what we're doing here.
Well, I think it's also important to note the challenges of the pandemic, and they have shareholders, and they have things have to grow. And I think Chapek is in a very unfortunate position. I think he gets dumped on a lot because he just he's following up Iger, and that's not as big shoe. And I do think there's some of that to think about too, and to give them the benefit of the doubt of how do you bounce back after a pandemic? How do you get park revenues back when you literally closed all of your parks for a good portion of 2020, and all of the revenue expectations of your shareholders have changed drastically? I mean, that's a challenge, and I get that, and I think a little patience is it can be afforded to, let's see if they can work this stuff out. There's also the overall. You just step back on Disney. I mean, the government's printed so much money, and all in the news is the inflation worries. And everything's more expensive. I mean, you go to the grocery store, things are more expensive. You can't buy a car. Your car lots are all half empty, right? It's just not the best housing prices. You want to buy a house right now, good luck with that, man. You're selling, hey, awesome, and then you got to buy one. I think generally it's kind of Disney's getting more expensive. They're looking for ways to make more money, but also people have a little bit more money. So there's a little more cushion for this. Now, if we enter a recession or something like that over the next couple of years, this could change a lot and fast. Along those lines, I think there's some news too, and I don't want to keep piling on this sort of thing, but and this may be down the list a little bit. The Star Wars Hotel.
Another great example.
Galactic Star Cruiser.
Galactic Star Cruiser. They announced their prices, and I think everybody, Universal, was like, "What? A family of four for 2 nights, $6,000?" And to be like, and that's 2 nights. So if you're going there, you're not just staying for 2. I mean, that's on top of your week-long vacation or however long you can afford, and that's just that kind of that prices me out, right? So
and the one thing to consider there, as I had not thought about it, is that you check in, like say if you check in on a Monday, you're going to check in late Monday, you're going to check in Monday afternoon, and then you're going to check out Wednesday, but that's going to be in the morning. So you're not even quite going to be there 48 hours. And part of what you're going to be doing is going to Galaxy's Edge.
Yep.
So you're going to something that you've already done before too. Mm-hmm. So it's not even you're paying to do something that you probably have already experienced part of it. So it's a very expensive. And people are just going to people are going to get online and talk about this. And it's been interesting to see that, they had put out several videos on this new Star Wars Experience hotel, and they took everything down because for one reason or another, but the response from fans was not good. And I wasn't complaining. I'm not complaining about it. I knew I was priced out probably anyway, but I was really surprised at this stage of the game that people online can have that much influence, and that they weren't a little bit more prepared for this, and that the product did look a little subpar online. So I'm just kind of surprised this whole new phase of you can see it getting ready to happen. I'm just surprised at the publicity machine, the lack of this doesn't seem as professional.
What's interesting is I compare a lot to Apple, because Apple has just continually just killed revenue expectations. And the thing, Apple's a premium product that we all were using. I mean, within arm's distance are probably half a dozen to a dozen Apple products between the three of us right now. And when they introduce something else, they get criticism too. They always do. But there's some new keyboard that doesn't work that people don't like after they try it out, those sorts of things. But here's when they announce things, it's always, it feels like they're just better at this stuff. They try to surpass expectations. And at least even if they don't, and there's people that are good at unpacking, but you always get more for your money. And then sometimes they even like their bundled services. You think, oh, how much is this going to cost me? And then they hit you with something. Oh my God, that's it? Only $25 a month for everything they offer? And it's sort of like you get done with all that value and they build it up and they're like, oh, and here you can afford it too. Do
you think that Apple has the attitude of, it doesn't matter what we do, we're Apple, people are going to buy it?
I don't think that. There may be to some. I actually think that they still care about doing awesome things, and the money takes care of itself. Right. I really do. I think we haven't had a new product in a while. We're talking about Apple now, but Apple and Disney they share board members, right? And Steve Jobs was famously, I think he talked them Iger into buying Pixar at some point, right? Or was one of the very influential into that that thing. Mm-hmm. I was reading an article the other day about how he said, "Don't worry about if it seems to make sense or not. If it's a cultural fit," and it was very controversial when he did that. But all that to say, I just feel like Apple's way better at this sort of thing of introducing new things and new policies and handling the public and expectations a lot better.
They're just better at backing up what they're doing. The thing with Disney is it seems like they're doing these things that are controversial, or there's a lot of conflict for fans, and then they don't really have this is why we're doing it. Or I think if they would just kind of communicate to the fans of, we're doing this so we can do this or something. And that's what I think with Apple, they kind of can expect better how fans are going to react, and they can kind of communicate that more to their market than Disney does.
There's a great old story of Walt Disney when they were building It's a Small World in the 60s. And the costumer, Alice Davis, said, Mr. Disney, what's my budget? He said, I don't want you to think like that. I want you to design dresses for these characters that every little girl would want to have. I want you to. We want to be thinking much bigger than how much does and people know those stories, and you want it to be that way. So when they put out videos of Star Wars and people are going, well, that doesn't look like Star Wars. like Star Trek. That looks kind of cheap. You're kind of shocked because you go, are you thinking that we'll just come, that we'll just do anything that if we build it they'll come and they'll love it just because it's Disney or Star Wars? Because if it's not authentic to people, they won't respond to it. In the same way, if Apple puts out a product that's poor, it's going to get so much social media backlash that there are going to be a lot of people that go, I'm not buying that. People, the reviews are horrible, So anyway, it's discouraging to see it, but I think they'll push through it. But if it doesn't get better, I think there's going to be a point. I think there's going to be a point that people will go, I'm not paying for that. I'm not. Like that's too, and one of the things that I'm experienced as somebody who loves going to the parks. I've stayed in the resorts. So if the resorts price me out, I'll stay somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm totally comfortable going into the park and just doing the things that I love. I don't have to do everything. It's the families that have never gotten to go, that are middle class families that want to go take their kids to the park, and they're getting priced out. And I think it, I may be idealistic, but I think Walt and the original creators would be so saddened by that, because I think it's they're gearing and pricing everything for people that can afford everything, and that's a very small part of our population. And it's just sad to see something that's been a family institution in so many ways is now getting to the place that unless you're you're going to pay for the resorts, and you're going to pay for the fast passes, you're going to pay for this, and it's like that's who they're catering to is this upper class crowd that can just afford it all. And it's sad to see. I mean, because you think of all the kids that aren't going to get to go because they're going to get priced out.
Other big news, the pass holder program, the annual pass holders had some changes this year too. I know you have one, JD, and is it different? I think it might be different at Disneyland and Disney World a little bit.
Disneyland's got the keys,
the Magic Key, which it was the one that had the more controversy this year. Again, it was another news disruption because they offered these Magic Key basic passes that supposedly had no blockout dates, but they only allowed so many reservations for each of those. So people from the month of October, November, December couldn't get a reservation, even though it was supposed to not have blockout dates. And there's actually a lawsuit out right now where I think it's a class action lawsuit where somebody finally sued for, misrepresentation. That's, you don't want to see in the news that Disney parks are being sued for misrepresentation.
Yeah.
Well, have you found it to be, you have to reserve your spot now, right, JD?
Yeah, that's right. With everything, you have to reserve your spot. So that was kind of not really disappointing, but just kind of like okay moment when we got the annual pass. Because when you get something called an annual pass, you imagine you could just show up and do whatever whenever you want. I believe
the good old days.
There's about 5 tiers. You've got like a sorcerer's pass. That's the one I have. I have the sorcerer pass. The most negative thing I heard about the Disney World annual passes was there's only one option for not Florida residents, and it was the most expensive option.
Right.
So everybody who wasn't a Florida resident was like, I've always had, annual passes for my whole family, and now it's like not possible. So luckily I'm a Florida resident and I can make it happen, because if I wasn't, I definitely couldn't swing an annual pass.
And when he actually went down and moved there, I thought this might be the year that I do an annual pass, because I can go, I can see him, I can go to the parks. But, quickly it was like, no, this is not the time. I'm going to wait. And, if I get there a couple of times this year, it's just not worth doing the pass holder right now.
I understand. Well, that was big news. We got pass holder news. We got Disney Plus was huge. Go ahead, JD.
Yeah, just so many. We've talked about some of the pricings, but the parks has just had a lot of good. We've got Remy Ratatouille this year, which I really enjoyed that ride. Me and Dad have talked about that a lot. Space 220, Steakhouse 71, all great restaurants. So even though it has been a pandemic, they've been able to add new things, and there's still new rides on the way. So I still have a lot to look forward to.
Disneyland, opened, refurbished Snow White's Adventure, and that when they opened up, both parks got a Jungle Cruise updates, new animatronics, new scenes, some new fireworks shows, Harmonious at Epcot. The Avengers Campus opened at Disneyland. That was a real fun thing. We've got a Marvel area in the parks in Disneyland now. So at California Adventure, so that there are some good things, and I do like that Ratatouille. It fits into the France area so well, and France is just so much bigger now. It's just there's so much. It just feels like there's so much more space. It's just a great area to go. The attraction's good. There's always going to be people that want everything to be the level of Rise of Resistance. But you need these family rides that everyone can ride, and there's things to do. And I remember going to Epcot when my kids were elementary and even in the preschool, and they just didn't understand a lot of it. There wasn't as much for them to do. So to have a few things like a Remy or a Frozen, even though I don't know for those who love Epcot, they hate when anything changes, but to have a couple of characters in Epcot really helps if you've got small children.
Yeah,
so it was a great. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Where did the Guardians of the Galaxy ride attraction? Where is it being built?
Well, it's at Epcot. It's in
That's what I thought.
Universe of Energy attraction, but that's going to open. We finally got a date at D23 this year that's going to open up in summer of 2022 is what's supposed to happen. We know at least the time frame. Mm-hmm. So I think again, the expectation level with the 50th anniversary. We went during the 50th anniversary. It doesn't necessarily feel any different. I mean, there's some statues that just to celebrate. There's a fireworks show, but a painting the castle. But there just wasn't the hey, we're opening Galaxy's Edge this year. So there was really no big openings. Remy's. I enjoyed it, but to a lot of people, it wasn't as big. So again. A lot of good things, but with it being a 50th anniversary year, it's probably left a lot of people going, I expected more. Lots of great food, though. Lots of great food. They're really cranking out a lot of special treats and special snacks for the 50th. And now they're already rotating them, things that they started. They've, put new merch. Man, the merchandise for the 50th has been great. Lots of retro sweatshirts and retro things that look like the 70s. A lot of fun stuff that's come back. So really, really knocking it out of the park there.
They and we're talking almost everything we've talked about news wise has been Parkside on the Parkside business side, but on the streaming side with the new product Disney Plus. That's the other thing to keep in mind from in the big picture of things where we've had a pandemic, and that makes the in-person thing far more challenging. And throws a wrench into all sorts of plans and building, and causes delays and revenue problems, and leads to a lot of the things I think we've talked about so far in the complaining and negativity. On the other side, Disney Plus has been an incredible success, and I think Q1 they've added 60 million more subscribers. Of just anecdotally of all the subscription services I subscribe to, I feel it adds the most value. The content, like we're talking about, they surpass expectations in this realm, and they're just crushing it. They own of course the ESPN properties too, and the Hulu properties, and they kind of bundled those things up, and that's kind of cool too. But just Disney Plus on its own for families has been remarkable. I think. Even I don't even mind the first $30 for the quick access to watch it. I mean, I get that. We're all used to that. You see it in the theater. You don't want to go to the theater. $30. It seems like a lot, but when you have 6 kids, you're saving money. So we did that a couple of times, and I just think the content, the Marvel stuff, the series, the original content has been top notch just across the board. There hasn't been many things I haven't enjoyed at all. So let's talk a little bit about that. The biggest news on Disney Plus throughout the year.
Yeah, for sure. And for you, for me, when Disney Plus first came out, I completely thought it was just going to be a big vault of some of the classic Disney movies. I never imagined it was going to turn into this streaming service that I would use, weekly. And now we've seen it's rivaling like Netflix and all the biggest, streaming services. So it's really crazy how much it's blown up. And again, some of my favorite Marvel shows, I've been watching it every week, and it's been so fun to watch it grow.
Do you think it will pass Netflix at some point?
That's a great question. It certainly could. I mean, Netflix is so far ahead with just so much content. They just throw everything, and they're so good too at like the niche. Disney Plus is niched to families, right? You're not going to get adult content on there or rated R stuff or F-bombs. And so there's you get that on Hulu, right? But not Disney Plus in and of itself. And I'm grateful for that. That's why I have it. I have kids. But I also imagine there's an international market, and there's other markets that it may, just the fact that the market is a little bit more narrow might keep it from overpassing Netflix and subscribers or some of those other things. But as a niche, I mean, you look at HBO Max, you look at Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Premium, Netflix, Hulu is Disney owned, right? So they have that as well. And when you add all that together, yeah, I think when you add the package together, it's kind of a force that is definitely to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I agree with you. As a family streaming service, I like that it's separate, because I really don't want it all in one place. I want to go to Hulu if I'm going to watch a movie that's not in that zone. I would rather go to a different app than for that to start showing up in the middle of Disney Plus. And they've had those discussions about what's the most best thing for the to drive up the numbers. But I'm the way I am, I like that they even have it divided so that when I go, there's a Disney tab, there's a Marvel tab, there's it's if you're wanting to watch a Disney movie, it's not everything just alphabetical order that they own, that things are kind of divided up into compartments. So if you just love Disney or you just love Marvel, you can use that aspect of the service.
Totally. I think almost 120 million subscribers as of the fourth quarter of 2021. That's remarkable. $8 a pop per month. Man, we can only maybe the success of Disney Plus. It's driven the stock price without a doubt. Without Disney Plus, but maybe we could hope and wish that all of the revenue they're making from the streaming side might make its way into the park side at some point. Can be the cash cow.
One article I read recently said that it had grown 60% in 2021.
Yeah,
and that is big growth, if that's accurate.
Well, that's a lot of things too. I think at first the big Disney fans, of course, got it because, like JD said, it's a vault of all the great Disney stuff, and I want that. I want my kids to. We actually go watch old movies. We from That Darn Cat to Bedknobs and Broomsticks and all that stuff. It's all there, every bit of it. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, all this classic Disney movies, and then you get all this extra stuff too, like all this new content that's quality. And then, we're talking about, I think that's brought the latecomers around, right? They want to see The Mandalorian. They've heard the reviews of Loki and WandaVision and all the Marvel properties as well. And then just family con, just movies, you get the Hallmark crowd, with the cheesy Home Alone movie they made, even stuff like that. Like that stuff goes on Netflix. There's terrible movies on Netflix all the time, right? And my kids are like, oh, this looks cool. Let's check this out. So there's a market to be made with that too. And I think they're starting to produce more things. And the pandemic, honestly, they released in a pandemic where they had some stuff banked up, but all the releases were pushed back. So we probably haven't got as much on there as possible. Probably just now starting to catch up to what they promised us we were going to get. And that's super exciting too for the future. And I think the news and all the stuff that have come out from you have the theatrical releases, Black Widow, The Eternals, Shang-Chi, the live-action Mulan, those things that have come out, Raya and the Pixar and all that stuff has come out. But then the TV series as well over the last year, too, that have been really well-received. And I think that's some big news as well, that Disney Plus is rolling. The train is rolling, and it ain't stopping anytime soon, it looks like.
Yeah.
And this year they with Encanto, that's the 60th animated movie for just Disney. That's not counting Pixar. That is a lot of content. Just
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when there were 30 animated movies. So I mean, it's amazing. They're putting so much, and people are going to expect to see those things represented in the parks too. I mean, you keep creating these more animated characters, and people are like, well, where is Moana? And to put Moana in the park, they either have to build something new or something's going to have to be rethemed to that. Something's going to go, and so. But when you create all these new characters that kids love, like Frozen, you've got to put it in the park. It's so everybody expects it to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we were talking about it with Encanto. With this new animation, you can do so many more characters in these new movies, unlike the older generation of movies. So it's just like this flow of new characters with every movie, and so there will definitely be more presence at the park with these new movies.
Yeah, Snow White has like 10 characters, and this Encanto, her family's like 10 people plus the whole town. I mean, it's just this huge cast of characters now. It's amazing what they can do.
Well, with all of what we said so far, and I don't want to cut you guys off. If you have any other big news stories you want to add, jump in there and add it. Go ahead. You got something, JD?
No, that sounds perfect. Yeah, Disney Plus and parks are definitely the biggest news for sure.
Well, two other things that were on my mind. One that was sad to me was that we lost Disney stores this year. It was announced in like 2019 that Target was going to start having a Disney store area, and a lot of them do. And I don't know if it was because those did so well that why should we be paying rent in a mall for a Disney store if Target's going to do it for us? But it's not the same. I mean, if you loved going to the Disney stores, if you lived 12 hours from the parks, going to the Disney store when our kids were little was a little bit like being there. Just had a little bit of that, hey, it's a treat to go here and shop, and maybe you come out with a prize. And so it's kind of sad to see those go. I think the goal is to get it down to less than like 10 stores, probably only in the most traffic heavy parts of the country, tourist area. So that was sad to see. The other thing that was weird this year was which I think again was pandemic driven and just the stress of this season that we're in, but quite a few fights on the ferry boats and fights on attractions where people, and then all of this stuff lands on social media because somebody else pulls out their phone and films it. But I thought it was a real. We talked a few weeks ago when we were down at the parks. We talked a little bit about the stress that you watch people go through, and to see this year so many things pop up where people are just hitting each other with their bags and they're just slugging it out on an attraction. It's just really it was really an interesting thing to see this year.
Fascinating. Another question. I think that goes to the kind of the discussion we were having earlier. That I wonder if that's a sign of the times that it's worse than it's ever been, or if we just know about it because of social media. Yeah. That those are now everything's a story, right? Yeah. And I don't know. It does seem more contentious these days. Like I agree, it seems more negative generally, not just Disney wide, but like just in general, like people seem to be at each other quicker, right? That's just a sense I get.
Yeah, definitely with you looked at money and we've talked about just prices being rising and stuff like that. I think that could contribute to it, but also technology, social media, and this market for Disney media, these Disney accounts. More people are becoming these huge fanatics and starting more and just loving talking about it more. So I do think it's just everybody kind of wants a story. So when there's a little story, or if there's a girl trying to make a TikTok and living with the land and she's grabbing a cucumber, it's going to make all the news, account headlines,
Right.
So it blows up.
Yeah. I think though it's just a reminder that if you love the parks, if you love going to the parks, you've got to prepare yourself when you go. If you go in with the attitude of like, okay, I've paid this money, now impress me. Treat me like a king. I mean, you're probably going to be, you're setting yourself up to be disappointed, and you're going to be stressed, and you're going to be, you're just going to be stressed out. So go like you said, like we started off. Go with gratitude that you're there with your family, that you're having a good time, and try to take it easy. Try not to let all these things overtake you.
I love that advice. Just be more chilled out and thankful. I mean, if you get to go to Disney, just think you're probably in the top, 1 to 2% in the entire world. You know what I mean? Like, and don't take that for granted. It's a blessing. So let's end with this. I'm going to put you guys on the spot and ask you your favorite piece of Disney news from 2021. JD,
Yeah.
go.
Favorite piece of news?
Just the favorite Disney item from 2021.
Well, okay. Well, my news was going to be.
I know, Genie Plus. I got it. We're on David. Go ahead.
No,
I'm joking.
no.
I'm totally joking.
Not for the local, but
yeah.
One of my favorite pieces of news that we've gotten this past, couple months, D23, was about Fantasmic. It's coming this summer. It's coming back. I mean, I'm pumped for that because Fantasmic is my absolute favorite show, and I love Hollywood Studios, and Fantasmic just is the icing on the cake for Hollywood Studios. So I'm just looking forward to that day in this upcoming year of riding all the great rides and then ending my day with Fantasmic. Is going to be a blast.
Yeah,
awesome. All right, that's cool.
And it's getting an update. They're adding some new things, and so that's going to be.
Hopefully, it'll work.
Yeah, hopefully it'll work. I think I am grateful. I'm grateful for any time I get to go, and I was grateful this year to go just a few weeks ago with this guy and to eat at some great restaurants and to really do what we just said, to try to slow down and not feel like we've got to run from thing to thing. But let's if it's crowded, let's try to we'll enjoy something new. We'll try something that we've not done before. We'll experience something that doesn't have a line that we've done, haven't done before. So that was one of my favorite things this year. I'm excited for a lot of the things coming out. We've got new rides. We've got Guardians of the Galaxy, Tron, the cycle roller coasters coming. I mean, it's taken some time to recover from this pandemic, but there's good things coming. I'm excited for it.
What would you say?
I'm gonna give you one. This is a little bit, maybe a little different. I was going to say just the onslaught of Marvel content on Disney Plus, but I'm not. I'm going to say actually, I'm really most thankful in the news that the parks are open and moving forward again, right? I'm also, side note, thankful that Florida seems to be getting a lot more than California because I'm closer to Florida, selfishly, and all the good stuff because of some of the. I know there was a piece of news that said a lot of there's a lot of relocation of offices from Los Angeles to Florida simply because California has been famously so draconian with their COVID restrictions that it's put a lot of pressure on businesses, and it's not just Disney. It's like long list of companies from Silicon Valley all the way down to San Diego are jetting out of California and heading to places like Texas and Florida. And it makes tons of sense for Disney to have that already has so much, property in Florida to move in those things. So selfishly, I'm kind of excited to see more of the talent go to Florida, which is closer to where I live in the country, so that I can hopefully experience all that too. So I know that's kind of silly, but most of all that to say, I'm grateful that the pandemic is sort of passing through, and that there is more of an attitude of we have to figure out how to live with this, and we have to keep things open, and we have to move forward, and we want everyone to be safe. By no means don't hear that as like I'm being flippant or don't care about this. It's serious, and man, take care of yourself. But it's been that 2 years we have to figure out how to move on, and I'm very thankful that Disney is a company that is kind of leading the way and has been so careful and done so many good things with that. So that's my favorite news item of the year is that Disney and parks and things are opening. We're getting back to normal.
Yes.
And I'm grateful again for all of it, from the content to the parks to the streaming to everything, that it gives us something to enjoy when things are tough. I mean, that's why I like this genre of entertainment. It's typically positive, it's uplifting, and it's an immersive escape from some of the tougher things in the world, and I love that about Disney.
Yeah, 2021, wrapping it up. Crazy.
And we are also very grateful for you, our listeners, who have stuck with us and stick with us week to week. We're so thankful for you. Let us know why you love Disney. What were your favorite things about Disney in 2021 from the streaming, from Disney Plus to the parks to the news? What are your expectations? What are you looking forward to in 2022? Get with us at whyilovedisney.com, socials, Instagram, Twitter. You can find us there. But Happy New Year to you guys. David, JD, Happy New Year. Have a great New Year's Eve. And can't wait to get back together with you again next week. And until then, everybody, take care.
Awesome.
This is why we love Disney. Happy New Year.